the law of kinds. In the first chapter of Genesis, it has several times this kind of phrase. God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind," and it was so. In fact, 10 times in the first chapter of Genesis, the words "after his kind" is used. I think there's a hermeneutical principle for repeating things. For example, an interesting study in the Bible is when God repeats names. When he says Abraham, Abraham, or Martha, Martha, or Saul, Saul, there's an emphasis, double emphasis. You'll find several times in the scriptures, like Galatians 1:8-9, where it says, "Though we are an angel from heaven, preach any other gospel than this, let him be accursed." Verse 9 says almost exactly the same thing. Even the thought of being born again. John 3:3 says, "Except a man is born again." 2 verses later, "Except a man is born of water and the Spirit." A double emphasis. When God repeats something 10 times in one chapter, there ought to be some significance to it. So what does "after his kind" mean? Well, it applies to the plant and animal kingdom. For example, I had an apricot tree in California. What did I get off the apricot tree? I don't think you'd be amazed to think I got apricots. I did not get bananas. What do you get off an orange tree? Oranges. What do you get off an apple tree? Apples. What do you get off of bean plants? Beans. Everything brings forth after its kind. You expect that, don't you? What do you expect when two horses get together? A male horse and a female horse. You expect a colt, don't you? Two cows get together. What do you expect? Calf or baby cow. Cows produce cows. Horses produce horses. Everything. And that's not a brilliant scientific thing, but it's observable. It's repeatable. It's verifiable. That's what everything brings forth after its kind. Wouldn't it have been surprising that the doctor would have walked out of the office or out of the operating room and came to your father and said, "Congratulations, you are the father of a baby alligator"? Do you think his parents expected to have an alligator? No. They expect to have a human. Because humans bring forth what? Humans. Everything brings forth after its kind. It's just, to me, it's amazing how people can believe in evolution because it's so contradictory. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, front page, has this. Let me read the clipping because I didn't put it on the screen. "Papa was a dog and Mama a cat. And the London pet shop owner who said he bred them now has 2 offspring he calls dads. Roy Tutt said he crossed a male Scotch Terrier with a female black cat. The offspring, he said, have dogs' faces and cats' legs and fur. Said a spokesman for the Regency Park Zoo, I would have never thought it possible." Front page, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Dog bred with a cat. I thought everything brings forth after its kind. My question is, who dat? You call them dads. What is dat? What do you think about that? Front page, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I thought you just said everything brings forth after its kind. Well, let me give you the real explanation. Do you see this little clipping? The front page was December 13th. December 14th, buried about page 6 or 7, is a little clipping, and I'll read parts of the clipping. The title was "Cat Dog a Hoax, Briton Admits." 2 furry animals that Roy Tutt offered as successful mating of a dog and a cat were nothing more than mongrel puppies which cost me 5 shillings each. He said yesterday. Shilling is an English unit of money. By spending the equivalent of $1.20, Tutt perplexed British animal experts and earned a few pounds for personal interviews and photographs, according to his handwritten confession. He says the whole business is a hoax. We're 31 years later and nobody still has bred a dog with a cat. I wouldn't doubt that some of you have a dog and a cat in your home and you've never got that. Why can't the dog breed with a cat? the DNA molecules, apparently they're not alike enough to allow reproduction to take place. The Creator designed each kind to remain separate rather than blend. So dogs are still a dog kind, cats a cat kind. It is true there are variations in dogs. There are bulldogs, there are Scotties, there are collies, there are greyhounds, there are beggar dogs. They're just different breeds of dogs. In the 4,500 years since Noah, they have bred the white ones with the white ones, the black ones with the black ones, the tall ones with the tall ones, and they have, by selective breeding, produced a number of different breeds. Let me ask this. How many dogs do you think Noah brought on the ark? 2. It's 2 of every kind. That's all he brought. And since then, over the years, selectively bred until you've got now what we call different breeds. Same thing with cats. How many cats do you think Noah brought on the 2? And we have Persian cats and Russian cats, and there are a lot of different breeds of cats. Let me just stop a minute and ask the question. Suppose you had a huge ball field, you covered it up, you fenced it all in, and you put all the different breeds of dogs in there. The Dachshunds, the Great Danes, the St. Bernards, the Pekingese, the Poodles, and you put them all together. And you put them food and water and left them there for about 5 years. What do you think you'd have? You'd have a whole bunch of mongrels, probably. Maybe it would take longer than 5 years, but after a period of time, you'd end up with just kind that Noah brought on the ark, wouldn't you? Suppose years later you put all the cats in there. Persians, the Russian cats, Siamese cats, Maltese cats. You put all these cats together. Put food in there and water in there, enough for 5, 10 years. What would you have at the end? I call them alley cats. Now, after that experiment, you tried another one. You put all these different breeds of dogs in there, and you put all these different breeds of cats in there, lock them up with food, water for 5 years. What would you have? Dead cats. You'd have a big fight, wouldn't you? Might even have some dead dogs. Who knows? But I'll assure you one thing. After 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years, you wouldn't have any dads. Dogs would be dogs. The cats that survive would be cats, but no dads. Because the Bible said, let everything bring forth after what? His kind. That's maybe not high-powered science. You maybe could study that in 3rd grade and understand the law of kinds. But the theory of evolution contradicts that. Evolution says that one kind eventually became another kind. Like a fish, for example, with fins, became an amphibian with legs. Never has that ever been done. Microevolution, small-scale changes, like different breeds, like different colors, or different sizes, or different shapes. Even, for example, they have produced grapefruit now that has practically no seeds. When I was your age, we cut a grapefruit apart, we'd have like maybe 100 seeds in every, in the center of those things. And you have seedless grapes and so forth, but the grapefruit are still grapefruits. Grapes are still grapes. Where a lot of people don't like this term, microevolution, that idea of variation within a kind is possible. There's a lot of variation. Just look in this room here. There's quite a variation in the human kind. Some of us are taller than others. Some of us have different colored hair, different colored eyes. But none of us have changed from one species to another. And that's what macroevolution says. Macroevolution is a large-scale biological change where somehow things like fish change into amphibians, amphibians to reptiles, reptiles to mammals, and so forth. And I want to tell you that macroevolution has never been observed and thus is not scientific. Now, one of the arguments you'll hear sometimes and still see it in textbooks is this idea of the peppered moth. Before the Industrial Revolution, the trees were relatively light colored. So the black moths were easily picked off by the birds. So the percentage ratio of black moths to white moths was that there was a greater preponderance of white moths. Then when the Industrial Revolution occurred and the soot and the trees and the walls became black, then the white ones were easily preyed upon, and there became a preponderance of black moths. Then when they started cleaning up pollution, the ratio changed again. Now some people say that's evolution. No, it's not evolution. There was always black ones. There was always white ones. There was a variety in there, but the survival rate was better for the white ones when they were on light-colored surfaces and for the black ones when they were on black surfaces. So that is a poor example of evolution. In fact, it isn't an example at all. Darwin, one of his thoughts behind his evolution was that Galapagos Islands, west of Ecuador, he observed that on different islands there were different finches, some variations. Some had different kind of beaks and bigger beaks and different colors and so forth. And so he got the idea that maybe they evolved one into another. But the truth of the matter is they all were finches. There's a lot of variety in their bill size, colorization, other habits, but they're all finches.